Good afternoon and welcome to today's edition of Lunch with Haley. We will begin in approximately 2 minutes. Good afternoon and welcome to today's Lunch with Haley. My name is Matt Lozer, Director of Recruitment Marketing here at Haley Marketing, and wanted to thank you for joining us today on this Lunch with Haley, where we are actually going to be talking about recruitment and why recruitment marketing now. Want to thank you for joining us today, and I apologize if there's a little extra background noise. The construction vehicles in our neighborhood decided to start developing the lot next to us right here at 2 o'clock Eastern time in Buffalo, New York. So if there's a little bit of background noise, I apologize for that, but we should be okay. Jumping into the presentation here, before we do that, I want to make sure if you have any questions, please feel free to join into the question window or chat window on your GoToWebinar platform there, wherever you are listening, and we'll do our best to answer them either during the presentation today or follow up afterwards. And we are talking recruitment today, and it's definitely changed a lot in the last few months in this side, along with a number of other things. And a few months ago, there would be a lot of questions when we'd be having conversations with companies about recruitment, and unemployment was obviously historically low, below 4%. And to find that talent, sourcing it was basically like trying to find a needle in a haystack. And it was very hard to find that talent to fulfill your open jobs. And now with how things have changed today, we still have to find those needles, but there's a lot more haystacks. There are 10 needles in 100 haystacks, and the talent is available, but finding it is still going to be a challenge. And obviously we know what happened, but a refresher on the data is going to show how unemployment in pretty much 1 month went from historic lows to historic highs, going from 3.5% in February to over 14% in April, and then, you know, a lot of people thought surprisingly dropping a little bit in May, and it's still a very high number, but it seems to be hopefully improving as we're trying to bounce out of this recession for the industry. Unemployment claims are also obviously extremely high with, you know, I didn't see the numbers for this week, but, you know, close to 50 million. We've had 48 million unemployment claims since March. And now we're probably thinking, why the heck is Matt doing a presentation on recruitment? There is the largest number of unemployed workers available on the market in decades. You know, what are we doing having a webinar about recruitment marketing? You know, why should we be spending? There's a lot of talent available. There are budgets were cut, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But obviously there's a lot of interest in it. This was one of our largest registrations for webinars in the past year here at Haley Marketing Group. So we're going to hopefully answer a lot of the questions, share some new tactics. And the reason we're doing that is it's a challenge as we're trying to grow that tree, but our roots are really in our budgets are down to the size of a flower pot. It makes it very difficult to really make that tree grow when the tactics, you know, the amount of money we have, the resources we have, the number of people in our office are really have decreased. And to help find all of those awesome candidates is definitely a challenge. So what can we do to help make that tree grow? What can we do with our current services and tactics? How can we pivot them? How can we shift them to help us reach our business goals? Because we still have those business goals to help, you know, drive revenue for the company, but we do need to change some of our tactics to meet the needs of our candidates. So let's build the case. There's a number of reasons to why recruitment marketing is still really important. And regardless of the market, it could be, you know, a lot of low unemployment, high unemployment, the best talent, that right talent for your company is still always hard to find. There's still the needle in the haystack is out there, and there might be more needles available, but like we said in the beginning, there's also a lot greater number of haystacks for us to search through to try to find that. And there's going to be a lot of applications coming through for your open jobs. So what can you do to connect with that audience so that you're able to find the right talent, the best talent, the great talent available, bring them to your jobs? We talked about earlier, budgets have been cut. You know, we've talked to companies, we've seen companies talk about it, you know, their experiences of having budgets. You know, the easiest one is to look at on job boards and how they aren't advertising as many jobs on Indeed, ZipRecruiter, the other job boards that are available, cutting that budget by 50, 60, 80, some even 100%. And we could take that even a little bit further to where the number of jobs on those job boards have decreased a lot because for a variety of reasons, budgets are cut, there's fewer jobs available. People don't think they need to sponsor those jobs. So budgets are really getting decreased. The talent in your office, number of recruiters may be lower. The number of options you have to use outside vendors may not be as big as it was as well. And there's more noise. If we just think about the amount of time we're spending on smart devices, on computers, on tablets, people are creating more content. That was a problem, a challenge pre-pandemic, pre-COVID-19, and more content was getting created because good content marketing works really well. There's more noise online, so we have to be able to cut through that clutter. So the goal here is recruiting in today, you know, June 2020, it's going to be about doing more with less. What can you do with that smaller budget, maybe that smaller amount of resources in your office to do more, to find more talent, to beat your competition, to keep your pipeline filled with the right candidates so that you can get those revenue numbers back to where they were and even start to beat them to reach your goals. So what do we need to do? We need to find that talent faster. And whenever there's a recession, whenever there's a downturn, it's always trying to find out how long is that recession going to be, right? Economists like to look at it in different letters, right? If it's a W recession, if it's a U recession, if it's a V recession. And, you know, the optimistic view right now is that we're in that V recession. Maybe it went really down really quick in March and April. Jobs numbers were good in May. As states start to open back up, as businesses start to open back up, you know, if you're in phase 2 or phase 3, like we are in New York State, or if you're in the red light, yellow light, green light over in Pennsylvania, the companies that have that talent, that can source the talent faster, that can get their candidates to those open jobs faster, they're going to win. That's really important. This right talent, great talent point that I've been talking about, it's really important because the best recruitment marketing, the best employer brand is going to repel some talent and some available candidates, and that's okay. That can be really hard for some recruiters, for some staffing agencies to swallow and accept, but not everyone's going to be a right fit. Not everyone's a right fit for your company, for your open positions, for your clients' open positions. That's where we really have to differentiate and write the job description, to create the video, to show your values, to show the messaging throughout all of your different assets and resources, and to create those relationships with the available talent to get the right candidates to apply for your job. And that builds off that last point here of, we want to tell that story. We want to connect with them. Maybe your company is doing a lot in the community service before, and they're continuing to do that right now. Maybe your company really focuses on converting employees from the temporary status to perm status. You know, maybe your company has pivoted what it's doing in its business from, and really responded to new jobs that are being created out of a recession, like something that happens in every recession. So it's really finding the right ways to attract the right talent and tell your story so candidates want to work for you at the end of the day. What else do we need to do, right? There's a lot of negative reviews coming out. We'll talk about it later, about how Glassdoor has seen a huge increase in negative reviews from companies, basically because people were laid off, and that's what happened to millions of workers across this country. What can you do to battle those negative reviews? So when you do have job orders open and the best candidates have choices, what do they see when they crowdsource all of those reviews? What can you do to get more ROI from your job board spend, from your recruitment spend? Because if the budget's smaller, we have to do more with a less of a budget. We have to do more with that smaller budget. What can we do to really convert on those hard to fill jobs, or maybe those jobs that are going to bring you the most revenue, the most gross margin? How do we use technology and automation to balance that with the strategy of your office and to fill open jobs? Finally, we have to convince people how to go to work, right? There's a couple of issues right there that are challenging, in that there's a money issue, right? With unemployment being high for the next, until the end of July, people could be making more money on unemployment than they were actually working in their jobs. But also there's a safety issue that's very simple right now, of the unknown of the virus. What can we do to battle that and to make people feel safe at work? What can we do to really make them feel like they're okay walking into a workplace with a mask or socially distanced, and that you have their back? Those are two really big issues where we have to convince people to go to work. And here's the Haley Marketing Group. This was our definition of recruitment marketing before, right? Everything it would take to get someone to click apply, because there was supply and demand was much different. The supply of candidates was much lower. And, we've pretty much tossed that out the window right now. It's now really focusing on this 4-part definition of, we have to get the jobs filled. We want to have the right people. It's always got to be faster than your competitors, but what's the lowest possible cost per candidate? And this hasn't changed totally, but our emphasis in recruitment marketing really has to focus on, what can we do more? What can we do more with less? How can we really get your jobs filled, right? With the right people that are going to consistently show up for the open shifts. They're going to come back every day and do a great job. How can it beat your competition down the street, or maybe across across your city at the lowest possible cost so you can maximize all of your profits. And we answered one of the questions here in the chat window was talking about, what can we do to recruit employees who'd rather stay home on unemployment? And, we don't dig into that too much, but some of the things we've talked about internally here at Haley Marketing Group is really, what can you do with some of your PPP money, maybe to talk about, how do you get those candidates into the office? Maybe you provide goodwill to your clients and pay their pay rates for the next couple of weeks and don't bill them. You just pay your employees to go there without getting money back. It's a challenge, and maybe there's ways you can convince people to come off unemployment when it's July 15th, when it's a couple weeks away, to really promote the benefits of your jobs on what you can do and help them get the pick of the jobs before August comes around. It's a common question there that we've gotten from our clients, and those are some of the best answers that we've had to help our clients. So it's a challenge, right? It's a challenge right now in that aspect of the money, of the safety. But as this continues to play out here in quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4, 2021, what can we do to really find more candidates? And at the Haley Marketing Group, we've had these 4 pillars of recruitment marketing. We developed them over we've been in existence for, over 20 years, but as recruitment marketing has really started to develop over the last couple of years, these are the 4 pillars we really focus on. And the first one we want to focus on today is employment branding. And that's important because employment branding is really coming out of this recession, whether it's in the staffing industry, whether it's in the traditional HR world, as really important, and what candidates are going to use to connect with their current employers, with their future employers, and how they're going to decide which companies to apply to really send their applications into. So what can we do in this employer branding? Like, why is it important? Why are we focusing on this as the first pillar? And we're going to jump into a few studies here. The first one came from JobPal. JobPal has a chat bot with a number of big companies. We actually talked about this on a recent episode of Insights on the Secrets of Staffing Success podcast, which you can find on your favorite podcast player. I talked about this in one of the segments with my co-host Brad Biley, and there was data coming from recruitment chatbots on what was the most common questions, COVID-19 questions asked to chatbots. This is actual, real data coming from job seekers. And the number one answer by far, or most commonly asked question, was, what's been your company reaction to COVID-19? With nearly a majority of the answers, just under that, 47%. The next 2 were all hiring related and interview related, but it's showing us what people are talking about. The next one talks about, a study from Pepsi that talks about empathy, and 94% of Americans say that empathy is important, which is great. But the flip side is they only think 50% of Americans are empathetic. So what can we learn here is that empathy is really important. How can you show that in your employer brand? Because the survey is showing that only half of the country actually showing that empathy, that feeling, that feeling of empathy to the crowd, to their coworkers, to their friends, to their family, to anyone out there. What can you do to stand out to really show that empathy? And then this other study from LinkedIn showed the posts that really generated the most engagement, in the few weeks and couple months after the pandemic hit. The keywords in those posts, the updates to the statuses on LinkedIn. What did people click the most on? What did people give that thumbs up to the most? Did they comment on? Did they share on? That's what's really important to see is, these are all trends from people actually showing, these are actually trends from the audience, right? Companies that might have pivoted to making essential supplies, maybe companies that just provided really good materials. What did you do to help people? What did you do for the public health or for healthcare workers? All those different areas really underscore why employment branding is important. So let's jump into some areas. What can you do now with your employment branding? What are the things can you do now? And these are the areas that are always going to be important in employer branding, right? At no time more did your values come through than during a crisis, right? You come back to what your company stands for. And it's great to showcase that through all of these different aspects, right? It could be testimonials. It could be best place to work in your community. It could be focusing on your recruiters or your company's experience. Or maybe you're really good at placing allied healthcare workers in Southern California. All of these different areas showcase, your employer brand, and they can always help you stand out, to connect with the audience, to really focus on getting the best talent, the right talent. And this is pivoting now to where we want to supplement that to some different tactics, right? What are people really looking for in today's employer branding, right? Number one is safety. I was, scrolling through Twitter this morning, and one of my recent Twitter followers has been Dr. Scott Gottlieb, and he was a former head of the FDA. He is on CNBC every morning, and he always posts his morning interview to where they ask him about the latest updates in the pandemic. And, one of those light bulb moments went off in my head was he was talking about how can workplaces help with COVID-19 testing? And yes, there's a lot of liability and issues in there, but it made me think about the staffing agency or the company that can find a way to maybe partner with a local, medical company to either test on site or maybe do mail-in testing, to where you have a testing place or location to where you test your temporary workers. You give them results maybe instantly or a day later, and that's your value brand ad, because you're helping them be comfortable with going back to work, and you're taking that testing idea and you're the company that's providing it. You're not relying on them to go get tested, or you're not hoping that they feel okay to go to work today. You're really jumping forward with that idea of testing as more testing becomes available to help them feel safe about going back to work in a physical location away from their home. On the flip side of that, it could be with remote work and remote interviewing. And in the months after, the middle of March, Indeed always looks at all of its trends. And one of the trends they saw was traffic to jobs promoting remote work from home was up 599%. Those are trends for people. Obviously, not all staffing jobs can do that, but some of them can. And how can your company help pivot with your clients or find job orders to meet what people want to see, meet what people want to do in their careers? Because this work from home is definitely going to change. So you want to show how your company is helping with that through your employer branding. Then on top of that, right, the onboarding process, communicating with your candidates. What are you doing for virtual interviews, right? What are you doing for onboarding? What are you doing for the hiring process to minimize contact right now between your recruiters, your team, and candidates? All of those things are going to help you stand out, because companies want to see that in employer branding from their potential companies to work for and the companies they are currently work for. So some tactics we can do right now to really build off those general ideas of employer branding. The first one, build positive reviews, right? ZipRecruiter was one of the companies in the industry that got hit really hard, right? Glassdoor got hit really hard. And Glassdoor looked at all the data of reviews to its site, and in March, small to medium-sized businesses saw their reviews mentioning layoffs increase by 60%, which is an enormous number, because people got laid off. Could they have been angry like this one? Yes, it's a 1-star review, but they also were telling the truth. People got laid off. There was a huge, millions upon millions of workers losing their jobs. So they were really struggling. They were really struggling in their personal lives and professional lives. So we have to find ways to combat these negative reviews and really build those positive reviews, right? What can you do? Ask your workers to leave you reviews, right? Because we don't think about leaving positive reviews. We need to be asked to do that. It's commonplace in employment and talent acquisition. It's common in your everyday life. Think about the number of times you want to leave a positive review at a restaurant or hotel versus a negative review when you're really angry and mad. But if someone asked you to leave that positive review when you were happy, that's the perfect time. So really focus on building those positive reviews. The second one, right? Write better job descriptions, right? What's in it for me is the long-term tactic, but right now, what's in it for me for the job candidate really focuses on safety. Maybe it works on where people are working, if it's remote or not work. If it was an essential job, a couple months ago, or this company's reopening on July 6th. What can you do to really showcase in those first couple sentences of the job description, right? We don't need to hide it. We don't need to bury it. That's what people want to see. We want to give the audience the information that they want to read about to get them to come apply for your jobs, right? And we've been talking about it here in employer branding, but maybe some of the benefits, right? What can you do to really address the job seeker concerns, right? We talked about it in that JobPal survey a little bit ago. It was safety. Some people maybe can only go back to work part-time because there's a childcare coverage issue right now, right? School's closed. The school year is ending. Some people might feel comfortable sending their children back to camp. I am excited to send my daughter back to camp on July 6th. It's 25 days away. But they might not be able to do that. They might not have that option in their area. So maybe they can only work part-time or have to take a contract work position for 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week. Think about all these different concerns that are impacting people right now, here in June, in July, or the rest of 2020, and showcase those, address those in all of your content on your website, on your social media, in your email, every way you communicate with workers. And building off that, your social, right? Adjust your digital marketing imagery. We run Facebook recruiting campaigns for company and for a bunch of companies. And this is one example to where, there are workforce jobs and people are hesitant to go into enclosed areas with people they don't know for fear of catching the virus. So we made some simple changes, right? We adjusted the copy a little bit, or even just adjusted this photo to show, an employee working in a warehouse wearing a mask. And the result was exactly what we were wanting to see, right? In May, the cost per application on Facebook dropped by nearly 50%. It was down 46.6%, because we freshened up the images to show the audience what we want, right? On Facebook, all we do is we scroll. If we have something that's thumb stopping to get someone to stop when they're looking for a job, to make them feel comfortable, to really focus in on that emotion of comfort and safety, it's going to work really well. And it showed here with this company over in Oklahoma on how we can get more candidates for them. And lastly, video content is obviously really important. And this company here, Hospitality Staffing Solutions, pivoted their business really quickly because you heard the first word in their name was hospitality. No industry got a bigger decrease in jobs than hospitality, right? They got crushed because people stopped traveling. There wasn't a need for people to work in hotels. So what did the Hospitality Staffing Solutions do? They pivoted, right? They pivoted to a lot of cleaning jobs. And how can they find jobs across the country in essential businesses or businesses that are going to need sanitation, because every state has new policies on what needs to be sanitized consistently. So in the hospitality industry, right, they repurposed their workers. They found some transferable skills, or they taught them new skills. And HSS showcased it on their website, right? They keep doing some new blogs. They've made videos to showcase how their workers are now the heroes, right? They were just working in hotels 6 months ago doing their job. Now they're going in and sanitizing and making workplaces safer for other people. So what can you do to really showcase with your talent, showcase your team and how you're helping others? Next pillar we're going to talk about is your career site, right? This is the website that you own, the information that you promote on your website. And it's important because it's your storefront right now, right? 20, 30 years ago, obviously is the front door to your staffing agency. But right now, people are probably going to your website first or your social media page first, but that website is really important because it's the land you own, right? It's not rented. It's not Facebook. It's not LinkedIn. It's not Indeed. It's not ZipRecruiter. It's not somewhere else where something could work really well for you today, but maybe they change the algorithm tomorrow and your information doesn't show up. Your website, that's what you own for as long as you own your business. That's what's really important. And the first thing you can control on your website is the messaging. And, you know, a number of companies created these COVID-19 resource centers. It's something we did for our clients quickly to create a way to share information on what's your response, right? What are you doing to help your team internally? What are you doing to help your employees out on employment? How are you there for them? You know, what are some resources now moving forward for working from home or for safety or anything that's at the top of the mind of employees or potential candidates? All those things that come together, right? Update that message on your site with the new hiring questions, the new onboarding procedures, right? People had questions before about, you know, how early should I arrive for an interview? Is there paperwork to do? You know, what stops do I get off on, you know, public transportation? Those were things we were used to doing for decades. But now when we shift it really quickly, people are going to have questions, and technology brings more questions. So maybe you're doing an interview over a video platform. You know, how can you help them log into their Zoom account or their Facebook account or the software that you're using? What can you do to make all those procedures as easy as possible? Your career portal is obviously important because we want to make it as frictionless as possible for people to apply, right? That's one of the most important words of this entire presentation, but definitely this section. And the only company we have to blame for this is Amazon, right? How easy has Amazon made it for us to go to their website or use the app on our smart device and order something in one click and it arrives in 2 days? And we're mad if it's not here in 2 days, right? What can you do to really make your process as frictionless as possible? Because that's what people want in their consumer lives. They want that experience in every aspect of their life, right? Mobile friendly should be almost a given right now. But if your application isn't mobile friendly, if it isn't easy to fill out, we have to make sure that it is. Go through and apply for your job today, or have a family member or a friend apply for a job and get their honest feedback. Some other areas, right? You have to make sure your jobs keep getting out to different distribution channels. You're looking at the metrics of your jobs, which we'll look into a little bit later. And how are you re-engaging that talent, right? What are you doing with that talent that's in your database, that's been there for a number of years, that maybe now is unemployed for the first time since 2012? How can you stay top of mind with them and really use your career portal to send them information on open jobs when you get those new job orders? Your analytics, right? Obviously, there's a lot of data that's coming out, and what can you do to look at the data on your website in Google Analytics if you have it installed on your site? What can you do to see where the traffic is coming from, right? What are the best sources of your traffic? What are the pages people are landing on, the entry pages of your website? How are they getting there? What's the first thing they see? And evaluate that page to make sure it has some type of conversion or next step for them. On the flip side, the exit page. What pages are leading to high exit rates? What pages are leading to higher exit rates than the normal exit rate of your site? The reason that's important is maybe someone read the content on your page, they just didn't know what the next step was because there's not a call to action. There's not a link for them to click on to apply for a job or to fill out a contact us form. It's really important to look at all those analytics of your website to see what you can do to improve. And then we have to make changes, right? I alluded to it on the last slide, but those pages with the high exits rate, right? Maybe they need more call to actions or better call to actions, right? One word could make it different, right? Between sign up or fill out or apply today, apply now, test it, make it simple. What can you do to simplify all those forms and make it easier, right? I think I've talked about it recently on our podcast, but let's say someone never heard of your staffing agency and they came across your job on Indeed today, and the application takes them back to your website, and your application on their website asks for a social security number, right? They may have found your job at 2:30 and now it's 2:34. So within the span of 5 minutes, they went from not knowing about your company to finding a job they like to you asking them for their social security number, right? I know it's important in a lot of ATS, but it's not something that's going to make people feel comfortable with sharing that, really the most personal, information of theirs, of a social security number for their identity in an application the first time they've come across with your company. So really look at all of your forms, all of your capture methods, and make sure it's the information you absolutely need at the first time. Lastly, make better decisions, right? We've evaluated our websites with our updated messaging. We're using our analytics. We're making changes, but continue to make those decisions, right? Looking here, we have applications coming from a handful of different sources, right? Upward and Talentre and Nuvu, which is now talent.com, 3 different sources of traffic. Follow that through to see, okay, which of these sources not only brought us the lowest cost candidate, the lowest cost quality candidate, the lowest cost placed candidate, because maybe source A had a $5 application cost and source B had a $10 application cost, but source B brought us 5 times the revenue. We're going to pay more for those applications because they're bringing us bottom line dollars. Our next step is going to be to look at social recruiting, right? Our third pillar here. We've talked about employment branding. We've talked about career sites, and now we have to look at social recruiting to see, how can we reach people on social media? And, this has changed a little bit because it's not just about posting jobs on social media, but there's definitely a place for it because it's not just the one thing you want to do, but it's part of the strategy and one of the tactics you want to do on social media, because we want to land active job seekers, right? There are people who are now getting into the mindset of going to Facebook to look for a job, or maybe on LinkedIn if it's more of a professional knowledge worker type role, right? They're going to Facebook to look at Facebook jobs because that marketplace has been in existence for 2 years. So what can you do to post it on there? What can you do to attract those passive job seekers, or people who still might have a job or casually looking, right? We're casually active. We're a passive job seeker until we become active. What's the content you can share with them to nurture that relationship so that you have a great pipeline of active candidates and then also in the funnel, those passive job candidates? What can you do to really balance those relationships? And that's what we're going to look at, right? Where do we start here? What can we do to focus on finding active candidates? What can we do to start focusing on passive candidates? And the first one is share more jobs, right? There's more, it's a numbers game right now. There are more people looking for work. It's much higher in June than it was in February. So what can you do to really post your jobs, right? What can you do for the businesses that are reopening in remote options, in safe workplaces, right? Share more jobs. If it's on Facebook, share healthcare jobs, share warehouse jobs, share call center jobs, share general clerical jobs. Those are jobs that can work really well on Facebook. If it's on LinkedIn, right? Obviously more of the higher level knowledge worker jobs, maybe accountant or financing or manager jobs. Those are places that we really want to focus on. So there's more people looking for jobs. People are spending more time on Facebook, on LinkedIn. Bring that content to them. We had a question here from Eric where he's talking about what are some your thoughts on sharing a job to your LinkedIn feed to the job rec on your website. And it's a good question to where it's great to share those jobs to your LinkedIn feed. I wouldn't suggest just sharing jobs. I wouldn't suggest just sharing an automated feed of jobs. Let's find a way to make it a little more personalized or how can we personalize that automation, right? The first thing is focus on really having a really good sharing, a social sharing image, something that stands out from the crowd. And then, what can we do to highlight the job? Is it one or two benefits? Is it the first couple of sentences of the job description? Obviously, the title of the job. Can you share a pay rate? And build that into your overall content strategy, right? If you're sharing 10 posts, maybe 2 or 3 of them are job posts. Some of them are regular content and some of them might be third-party content. That's a real back of the napkin formula right here. And it's going to be different for your company versus another company, but it's definitely a place to share jobs to your feed and see how your audience responds, right? There's a lot of different tactics we can use, but there might be some companies where your audience wants to see jobs in their LinkedIn feed, while there might be some companies that don't want to see jobs in their LinkedIn feed. So really find a way to make it look visually appealing to get someone to click on it and pique their interest and bring them back to your website, which is important then, because if it's a mobile-friendly website, if it's a mobile, really great experience on mobile where they can apply pretty quickly, that's really fantastic, because then you're catching them when they're interested in it and making it easier for them to capture. A second tactic on social media right now is, I'm harping hard on employment branding, but it's going to be really important, right? When COVID definitely hit first in March and April, the healthcare workers, the hometown heroes were obviously really important, as we see here in this one example of a social media post, but it's still going to continue to develop and be important, right? How are you helping your people? What are you doing with your business for that it's adjusting, right? What kind of PPE are you providing to your candidates, to your employees, your employees out on assignment, right? Really showcase those values that are near and dear to your company, and why you founded the company and what you believe in as the company, right? Or maybe if you're a recruiter for the company, that why you are excited about your company. Showcase those values in your employees and really highlight that brand to your audience, because someone might not be able to apply today. Maybe they will be in 2 weeks, in 4 weeks, in 2 months, and they know you as the company that was there for your employees when the chips were down. That's what's really important. This option focuses on targeting your candidate database, because it's really important to not forget about the people in your database. And it really is a perfect example of the doing more with less theme of our webinar here with recruitment marketing today, right? You have this database of candidates in your system. It is unique to your staffing agency. No one else in literally the world has that exact database that you have. What can we do to leverage that database to reactivate the talent to the best of our ability? On Facebook, a great option is to use what's called a matched audience, right? Let's say you have a database of 10,000 candidates in your ATS. We export that list of email addresses. We upload that spreadsheet up to Facebook. Facebook compares your original 10,000 email addresses with its Facebook database of email addresses. And then it matches them to literally create a matched audience. Normally that's around 50%. So let's say we have 5,000 people in our audience that were in our database. Now we can advertise to them on Facebook because they're on Facebook. Your audience is spending time on Facebook because you're a light industrial company. You're able to reach them on Facebook for a very cost-effective way to strengthen. Maybe you want to show your employer brand and what you did for your company the last couple of months. Maybe you really want to reactivate your talent and share your new job opportunities. Maybe you have a referral program that can work really well. And the number one thing is, this is a remarketing tactic, right? Targeting your website visitors, which we all know that happens when we go to a website, and now the shoes, the golf clubs, the pair of jeans, that item follows us around to every other website we go to. You can do that with your jobs, right? With website visitors or with your email addresses in your database. Retarget them, because it's easier to sell to a current client or an existing client than a new client, right? Our data shows it's twice as likely for someone to apply for a job. And this picture here on the right is for a company we work with in Northeast Ohio. And in May, their cost per click on a job was around 77 cents. In this month, when we changed it to this new imagery with people working, with masks, talking about a safe warehouse job, it's down to 22 cents. So a huge decrease right in the metrics on what we can do by just reactivating our database, showing them the right content, where they're spending their time. Our last pillar we're going to talk about here is job advertising, distribution, recruitment, advertising. And this is where we get into the big scary word of programmatic job advertising, but I really want to focus on some of the benefits of it, right? Why? And these two stats here really dig into it because we've talked to so many companies where this happens, right? 48% of the jobs get 2% of the applications. Those hard to fill jobs, the jobs that never seem to get the budget. On the flip side, you have that small pocket of jobs that seems to eat up a disproportionate amount of your budget, right? You have 6 jobs, let's just keep it easy, and they use 45% of your budget. That's not helping because you don't need 500 applications for the administrative assistant job when you have 9 jobs that are getting no applications. So what can we do, right? How do we balance that time and money to get the best results for your company? What can we do, right? As Peter Drucker said, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. It's important to know about all of our metrics on how to maximize the ROI of our recruitment budget and really focus on doing more with less. So let's walk through an example here of what programmatic is. And a couple of things is, one, I love easy math. That's why we have 100 jobs. And the other concept is focusing on buckets, right? Let's say your company has 100 open jobs. This is fictional XYZ staffing company. And we want to distribute these jobs into 4 different buckets, right? On the left side of the screen, there's 10 jobs that are a high priority. We really want to get half of our budget on those jobs. Those are the jobs that are most important to us. In the middle are medium priority jobs, right? 40% of our budget, 30 jobs. These other jobs, they need some exposure. They're going to get a low portion of the budget, but since we don't get free sponsorship on Indeed anymore, we do have to get them some exposure. Those 20 jobs are getting 10% of our budget. In the upper right corner, jobs we don't want, right? We don't want to get any sponsorship on those jobs because we want to keep them out there. Maybe they're pipeline jobs that aren't important today. Maybe they'll be important in a couple of weeks, and we just don't need to sponsor them right now. So we have all these 100 jobs automatically getting distributed into these different areas based on the way we're leveraging our software, right? And then to take it to that next step, in the bottom left corner, we're advertising on Indeed and ZipRecruiter, but we also have a rule in place to where if a job reaches 50 applications, automatically stop the advertising on those jobs. And I'll dig into those here on those next couple of slides, right? Let's say this is what happened. This was our data that came out. It's literally fictional, fake data. I made it up when we made this presentation this week. And for these different priority buckets, this was the cost per application for each one, right? The high, Indeed had a lower cost per application. The medium, ZipRecruiter was better. Low, Indeed was better. And this is great to know. For one, if our goal is to maximize our cost per application, we can adjust. But also maybe we're going to look at the revenue coming back to where, maybe, on the high priority jobs, Indeed did bring us the most amount of revenue. We need to put more money into Indeed because it's the lowest cost, it's the highest revenue. But maybe on the low side, ZipRecruiter had a higher cost per application, but it also brought us more revenue. Maybe we need to put more money into there to where our application cost is low, but our application cost is 50 cents higher than Indeed, but our revenue there was 10 times higher. So we want to make sure we balance all of these metrics together to make it as easy as possible so that you have a report coming to you that says, okay, this was our strategy, this was our application cost per strategy, match this up with our revenue. And then this application rule that I talked about a couple of slides ago, right? On the left, this is what happens if we don't have a rule in place, right? We only need to get applications up to that red line. But if we don't have a rule in place, they're going to go past it, right? They're going to get more applications on job A. Job B is going to be a little over. Job C has a few, and job D has no applications. That's not really helping us meet our goals. So maybe we can implement this rule so that job A has, right, once it hits this hard stop at the red line, all of the money trickles down to those other jobs. Job B hits the hard stop. Now more money is even available for job C and D, to where our balance is better, right? We want to get more applications on more jobs. That's our goal, to where we want to fill more open job orders. We don't need to fill job A 10 times if we only have one opening. We want to fill job A, job B, job C, and job D. That's where a rule could come into place. So that's a really basic example of the programmatic tactic. And, it's a great option for, if any company is advertising on the job boards, it's definitely something to evaluate and to look at. And these are some ways to really increase the efficiency of your recruitment spend, right? Stop manually posting your jobs. Right? We just had a call today with a new client who's really excited about, we're going to manage their sponsoring truck drivers on the job boards. We're starting with Indeed because they've seen a lot of success there. But right now, they're going in, they're manually posting the jobs. They're manually taking down the jobs. They're manually looking at the data to see, okay, when this job has enough applications, we're going to stop it, right? This list on the left there shows all, this is just 10 jobs. But if you look in the upper left, there's 179 jobs this company had that had been posted on Indeed. And can you think about, just the repetitiveness and the boringness of posting this job of 180 plus jobs all the time? It becomes really cumbersome, and nobody really likes that data entry consistent work. So what can we do to improve that? You create an automatic feed of your jobs to the job board, into the software, right? We want to give you more time back, because at the end of the day, we want to automate as much as we can. We want to give you, your team of recruiters, more time to spend on talking to the people who want to work for you, or maybe they can also spend more time going to get more job orders if, that's how your office is set up. So that's where we want to automate as much as possible with the posting of the jobs, the taking down of the jobs, all that manual process we want to automate as much as possible. The next one that can work really well, I think, in this new very popular remote world, try some different job titles and locations, because A/B testing is a best practice in marketing, but it can be very challenging to do it manually, right? This example here in the data shows how this job comes in as a correctional LPN. When LPN comes in, we're automatically also posting the job as a variation in correctional licensed practical nurse. So we're testing to see, okay, which one's working better. In this example, the original is working well, but it also brought us 4 more applications in our variation. So it did resonate with some of our audience. That's how we can automate job title expansion. On the location side, let's say we're in Buffalo, New York, where Haley Marketing is. We want to hire for, a new member of our digital marketing team. And traditionally, let's say, we just posted it as Buffalo, New York. Even if we market as remote friendly, maybe we can automate and leverage our software to have it post in Chicago, Columbus, Dallas, Seattle, all these different cities, to where when you post your job in one city, the software knows to also post it in multiple cities, because you have remote work friendly options right now. We want to make sure that's very apparent to people, because they might be going to search for a marketing job, but it's going to automate, or it's going to automatically search for those marketing jobs in their city. So if you posted a job in Buffalo, they're living in Chicago, the first marketing jobs are going to show up in Chicago. Let's automate that. Let's make it as simple as possible for your jobs to appear in multiple markets. Katrina was asking about the haystacks example that I've been referring to throughout this. It was just a just kind of an analogy we were pointing out here at the beginning, if you weren't able to jump on right at the start of the top of the hour, to where, finding that needle in the haystack of that best talent, that right talent for your company. What can we do to really find that talent when they're out there searching for a job? This next one has been vitally important here in, our changing economic climate, right? Have budget flexibility. That is vital to the uncertainty of job orders, because I don't think a lot of companies know when job orders are coming back, right? If you look here, this company had a pretty consistent spend for most of 2019. We ramped it up at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, from around $2,500 to $3,000, $3,500. But then March came, and we got on the phone, we talked, and they said, Matt, we gotta decrease our spend. I said, okay, great. What are we gonna do for April? We knocked it down by over $1,000 just like that. There was no long-term contract. There was no problems with a long-term agreement. We could maintain that flexibility because they had that control of their budget, because job orders went away right away. They went away quickly. What can you do to maintain that budget flexibility so your business is okay, you're comfortable, you're not over-leveraged in your long-term contracts? Because maybe your job orders aren't very high today in the middle of June. You don't know when they're coming back. Maybe they come back on Monday. Maybe they come back in 2 weeks or 4 weeks, and you want to ramp up quickly. But then on the flip side, maybe your city becomes a hot spot, like we're seeing in Arizona right now, and your job orders go away, and you've got to decrease your budget really quickly. Maintain that flexibility. The fourth and last one here in this job spend recruitment side, data, right? That spreadsheet right there is a lot of data. And for some people, if you're not into data, which I am, right? I'm the kid that read the baseball card at 4 years old and memorized statistics. I've always loved data. And this data here is exactly what I want to see. But if you don't know what to do with that data, it's hard to make the improvements. So what are your goals, right? Are your goals to increase the cost or decrease your cost per application? Are your goals to really focus on certain business locations of your company and improve the amount of applications to location A and location B, but you have a hard budget in location C that you can't go over? What can we do to really look at this data, make improvements, manage it most effectively to improve your overall efficiency? Because data is great. We're going to continue to get more data and more data. But if you don't know what to do with that data, it just becomes noise and ignored, and you're going to delete it or ignore it and not really find ways to help it improve the ROI of your recruitment spend and really to do more with less. So lastly here is we're going to summarize, right? Recruitment marketing, it's not just for big companies, right? It's easy to look at, the Fortune 500, the Fortune, those top 100 companies, and look at how they have consumer brands and employer brands. But what makes it really important is that in staffing, right, your consumer brand is really your employer brand, right? It's so important because that's what your company is, right? It's important to sell your company brand and to resonate with your candidates, maybe even to resonate with your clients, to showcase, these are the candidates we're going to bring you. Are you the right fit for us? On that candidate side, which we can't ignore, right? We want to find the right talent, the best talent, because you have to sell that company brand, that employer brand to your audience, right? That recruitment marketing, recruitment branding is your brand. That's what you sell every day, right? You want to create the right culture around your values and promote that to find the right talent for your audience. That wraps up our presentation here today. Really hope you found some value. If you have any questions, I know a couple have come through that we've answered, but if you have any more questions, please feel free to send them over in the question window, and I'll do my best here to answer them, or we'll follow up afterwards. Question here from another question came from Eric, where he talked about cost per candidate, and that's a good question because there's a lot that goes into placing candidates and hiring candidates. It's where I like to look at it on my end is the cost of a recruitment spend going into it. If it's on a job board, obviously you can look at trying to figure out ways to, how much time did your recruiters spend on this? Maybe you look at that as well. Or if you're doing employment branding advertising, how can you put a percentage of that into your recruitment budget to focus on the cost of hiring candidates? If there aren't any other questions here, we're going to wrap up here right inside of the 3 o'clock hour and let you know our next, we have a product demo webinar coming up on Tuesday, June 23rd, where we talk about Net Social. This is one of our newest tech product, not one of our newest tech products, to where you share your content. It's going to be amplified across your company, where we're making it easier for your team to share social content to reach its audience. And it could be on the recruitment side, it could be on the sales side. What can you do to connect with that active candidate, passive candidate, maybe that sales side, those companies you want to connect with? What can we do to help amplify your content to your audience in as automated process as possible? One more question came in here was, specific recruitment marketing sites we'd recommend in addition to ZipRecruiter and LinkedIn. And there's a lot of them, Katrina. What I like to say is, Indeed is number one, ZipRecruiter is number two. LinkedIn has its place really in that knowledge worker, more professional side, and then it's really focusing on how do you find those other job boards to supplement it, right? Maybe you can find something like, Appcast has a program called Accelerate, to where they push jobs to a number of different job boards at once. Or maybe you can find some niche job boards, to where in healthcare, I know that works really well. There's a lot of nursing job boards or physical therapy job boards. Maybe if there's a truck driving job board or construction job board, those are the best ways to supplement your recruitment strategy. And really, at the end of the day, we have to test, right? There's no magic answer that we here at Haley Marketing have that we're going to give to you if you give us a call or send us an email. It's really trying different things and testing them, seeing what's worked well, doing more of that, seeing what doesn't work well, and doing less of that. Question here from Spencer, where we talked about the Social Security number requirement earlier. I would think that's just a really good discussion with, we try to educate as best we can on how to, he's asking, their company requires the last 6 digits of a Social Security number for entering into their system. What kind of information or how do we consult with our clients on how to make that change? And really, if you go to look at our job board right now, we only share information of name, email, phone number, and ask for a resume. And that's the initial capture info. And then if you need that Social Security number, maybe you can do it afterwards. And that's one part of the discussion. The other part of the discussion is which application do you need to use? And that's probably a bigger discussion for your company of, do you have to use the application that comes with your ATS? And if you do, maybe you can work with that ATS company to change the form and have a different way to capture that information. That would be one thing I would really suggest, is really talking about it and, maybe even sharing the example I had, but if somebody came across your company for the first time 5 minutes ago, would you be willing to give them all or part of their Social Security number, and seeing how that could really, if that makes an impact, or even just maybe testing it for a little while and seeing if that improves your conversion rates, to where the percentage of people that fill out the form with the Social Security number, what's the percentage of people that fill it out without the Social Security number. If there aren't any other questions, we're going to wrap up this edition of Lunch with Haley, Why Recruitment Marketing Now. I wanted to thank you for tuning in and listening, and please make sure to check out the rest of our information at haleymarketing.com. Send us an email to our our marketing consultants at info@haleymarketing.com if you're looking to fill out more information. And thank you for attending today. We look forward to you joining us soon again in the future.